comic friends, I'm Travis.
And I'm Ethan.
And this is What the Fugue, where I talk about what's going on with me in my world of comics. Today I have with me special guest, long time ago, back now, Ethan. Doesn't typically hang out with me on What the Fugue, but we've got things to talk about that aren't just book reviews. So we'll jump into that here in just a few minutes. What's going on with this week? Well, of course, if you've been attached to the internet at all, it's been an absolute chaos between the let's not have a cover, let's have a cover stuff going on with Batgirl, and some of that craziness that's there. There's some battles between some creators who have partaken in online harassment in the past, now trying to get not trying to have jobs, and whether or not that's kosher or whatnot. I'm not really going to get into any of that stuff. Needless to say, I don't know whether the Batgirl thing was the best outcome for that whole cover situation. I actually think it's the best outcome for the Batgirl book. But the art itself, hopefully it shows up someplace else or whatnot. If you're interested in all that stuff, find Rafael Albuquerque, the artist, did an interview with a Spanish news agency where he's from. Check that out. You'll get his take on the entire thing and how that played out. Then you decide, I guess, if you think it's censorship or whatever you want to make of that. My 2 cents worth. I don't believe it's censorship. You read what the artist had to say about it, and it was a pretty sound decision. I mean, hopefully that art shows up someplace else someday. I would bet that it's going to. At any rate, so there's that. Other news type stuff, there really isn't a whole lot. Just, of course, remind everybody the Comic Book Roundtable is once again this Saturday at 6:30 Pacific, and that's 9:30 Eastern Time, and all times in between and around. And I have no idea who'll be on the show. I'm sure we'll talk about all kinds of fun stuff. I don't have my books yet, but I know there's some new books coming out, which should be interesting to talk about and whatnot. And maybe we won't talk about so much crazy stuff like we have the last couple of times. But really appreciate you guys all been tuning in and whatnot. The Comic Book Roundtable has been running about 500 views, which is huge. This video will get 100 plus, but 500 clearly people are at least clicking on it long enough for it to count as a view. So that's awesome. I appreciate it. And like I said, as per usual, hopefully get some new people on, get some old faces on, and have a good time talking about comic books. Speaking of talking about comic books, I was asked to talk about what's the difference between canon and continuity. I kind of talked with Ethan a little bit about this beforehand. Not this is a subject I necessarily want to talk with Ethan about, but he's here, so we'll talk. We'll talk about it. What's the difference between the two? And the reason the question is asked is because DC has said, Dan Didio came out and had an interview saying that after the whole convergence thing is done, that story is going to be more important than continuity. And what does that mean? I mean, I have an idea in my head what that means as far as what Dan Didio is saying about DC. But first, the difference between continuity and canon. So what do you think the difference is between the two?
For me, canon is like the bedrock. It's what is. It's canon. If it was a graph of like continuity and canon would be the X. Canon is what it is. You don't have outliers on the X graph. You have outliers in continuity, and then you just have your canon. Like in the second Aladdin movie, when Aladdin is singing in the first song, at one moment he's in his full princely attire, and in the next moment he's in his street rat outfit. That's a continuity error. I mean, he's still a prince, and he still, went through all the first movie, right? He's still married to Jasmine, or not married, I guess. He's still Jasmine, right? But it's a continuity error because he was just wearing one outfit, and now he's wearing another.
Right. So, for me, canon it's the Bible. It's the stuff that everybody has to follow. It's the stuff that is an ingrained 100% part of whatever the book is. In the case of like Batman is an easy example. There are just things about Batman that are standard regardless. Batman's parents were murdered in Crime Alley in front of him. That's canon. That's not, not to say that they don't tell Elseworld stories where they mess with canon and whatnot, but in the standard Batman universe, that's how it is, and nobody's going to break that. That's the stuff that isn't broken. That's the Bible that gets sent between writers when Scott Snyder, whenever he leaves the current Batman book, there's a Bible, and that Bible will move forward to whoever the new writer is going to be, and those things that are in there that are canon are stuff that is never going to be, that stuff isn't going to be monkeyed with. That's just what it is. Continuity is the current timeline of whatever that's going on in the events that are there. And so continuity is the flow of that's structured around that canon. So that's a little more fluid. You can change that in a sense or whatever. Clearly continuity changes when writers change. In those sorts of books and whatnot. Like you said, for example, of a continuity error, would be like you were talking about, or in the case of Batman, to still use an example, if mistakenly at one point through it they have him in the 1980s costume, which is grays and blues, with the yellow circle on his chest, and then a few panels later, suddenly he's back in what we currently see as the more armored black, sort of a thing. That would be a continuity error. But continuity is much more of a fluid kind of a thing. And I think in the case of what Dan Didio's talking about, that what he's talking about with continuity is, as in the entire DC universe has a canon and it has a continuity. They're not going to allow, the continuity of the entire universe is not going to dictate the story anymore. So if the main Batman, for the longest time, and I keep using Batman as an example because it's really easy because it affects a lot of other books around Batman. And it always was, whatever the main Batman book was doing, everything else would have to follow suit in some sense. That they could tell their own stories to some degree, but when something significant was happening in the Batman title, it always affected the other titles. And sometimes that stretched clear out into Batgirl, clear out into Birds of Prey, clear out into stuff that you wouldn't think is really Batman, just loosely attached to Gotham. It has an effect on that. And I think going forward, what they're saying is just because something's going on in Batman and it's at a certain time frame doesn't mean that Batgirl is going to be affected by that or its stuff, or Detective could clearly tell its own sort of story or whatever, that the two aren't going to be quite so laced together and dictated. Another good example of the whole kind of how that continuity might work or not work is right now we're in Batman, we're reading Endgame. We're almost to the end of Endgame, and Endgame comes after Batman Eternal. And Batman Eternal still actually has 4 issues, which means that Endgame actually started like 20 issues before it happened, kind of thing. Batman Eternal will have put out 20 plus issues before it reaches its end to inform us where Batman Endgame starts out at. So that could be confusing in the sense that you've got these multiple timelines going on, but I appreciate the fact that now it's not going to matter so much. They're each telling their own story. You enjoy those stories, for what it is. That's my take on canon and continuity. Canon is the bedrock. It's the Peter Parker was bitten by a radioactive spider. He becomes Batman. Batman. He becomes Batman because I'm stuck on Batman today. He becomes Spider-Man after Uncle Ben gets killed. That whole part, that's canon. The whole he was the wrestler, he lets the thief go because he doesn't care. The thief ends up killing Uncle Ben. Great responsibility, blah, blah, blah. That's canon. That's the stuff that he ain't gonna... Continuity, we get Dr. Octopus as Superior Spider-Man for a while. It's all part of that stuff and whatnot. So, that's my take on that. I don't know if that clears that up. People want to have more discussion about it. You got an idea of the difference and how that's different for you? Leave it in the comments. I'd be curious to see. That's just, like I said, my take on that and whatnot. So, the reason I have Ethan here is 2 weeks from now, a week from now, right?
A week from now, yeah.
A week from now, we're going to Emerald City Comic Con, which, of course, is full of spoilers and talking about the current books and whatnot. And Ethan was almost 9 months behind on reading comics. 9 months! You saw those comics that I had in all those boxes that I keep showing off in some other What the Fugue's about I need to put away and whatnot. He's responsible for that big pile sitting there like that, pretty much. So what was that like? Really, literally, basically, Ethan was like spending his weekends and free time just poring over 9 months worth of comics to get caught up. So when we go to Emerald City Comic Con and we're talking about whatever, you have an idea what the creators are talking about and stuff.
Yeah.
So what's that like reading that many books?
I mean, for some, it's all like reading a book series because I just and it like gave me really bad withdrawal with some books like Wild's End. I was not caught up for Wild's End. I think when I caught up was the same month that Wild's End ended in, and like. So that was nice. I mean, that was like reading a, like quick book. I was like, oh, great, that's cool. And like some books are like so wordy that like they're not bad. I just like after reading like 15 comics, then I get to a book and I open up the page and there's like more than 100 words on the page. I'm like, I'm gonna be done for now. Like the Massive is serious because it's like binge watching. Really, it's like you watch like 3 episodes and then suddenly you're pulled in. Like you're like, oh, it's only like noon, and then like you look up and it's like 8 at night. It's like that. And there were books that killed the streak for me, like The Massive, Cal, like almost always Cal, like Cal, I'm like, okay, gonna read this. If I hadn't been caught up still, Odyssey would have been one of those things that I'm like, and I'm done. Yeah. I'm done with this. And like, there are some books that, especially since you pulled them out to do things with them, so I gotta read them all in a row, like Annihilator, Annihilator and Birthright. Not reading those now is like what? Where
are they at?
Where are they at?
Yeah, because both of those I had to pick up. I didn't get the initial issue, so I had to grab a whole bunch all at once. So that's why you got that kind of thing. So it was like reading a whole bunch of trades all at once, but still broken up in at the same time.
Yeah, like you read. Yes, it was definitely like reading. It's like reading the first chapter of a trade, putting it down, switching out with another, like just rapid fire, right? Then like getting back to the start, reading the next issue. I mean, I didn't dislike it. I wouldn't say that's my preferred way to read I mean, obviously, like there are some that like I wish I could just get the entire Annihilator right now and then read all of it. Same thing with a few others, but. Oh, and I skipped comics that I didn't like. Like, I skipped a lot of them. Like, comics that I'm like, I just don't really like.
Which you didn't used to do, right?
Yeah, which I didn't used to. I used to read everything no matter how. Like, I skipped all of Batman Eternal because in the first issue they told, like, literally the only Jim Gordon story they could ever tell that I wouldn't be interested in. Like, it's the super cliche, oh no, the detective's framed for murder, so he has to prove that he's not guilty by catching the kill.
Hey, we're 50 issues in, they still haven't caught him.
See? I regret nothing. Nothing. I mean, granted, it was really confusing to jump right into Endgame. That was like...
Yeah, right.
I'm like...
Well, it kind of was for us, too, because like I said, why they're where they're at is explained at the end of Eternal, which we aren't at yet.
And like, I didn't read Eternal, I didn't read Captain America, or Batwoman, or like 3 issues of She-Hulk, and I decided that I wanted to read it after all.
Basically, he asked me what's going on with this, and if I went,
it was yay or nay, and if it was anything but yes, then it was just like scrapped.
Right.
Like I didn't read Magneto. I still am not reading Magneto. Should I read Magneto?
You should have. Yeah.
Oh darn! I didn't read Magneto because really I don't like Magneto that much.
That's cool.
It just nice. I skipped a lot of things, and there were a lot of things that was really great to just like read super fast, and it was nice to just have something to do. Like oh no, I just read comics.
Right.
Great. Done. I mean, and like it was nice too because I could read them at varying speeds. But like if I wanted to, I could just like burn through 50 different comics. So I could also like watch TV. Oh great, during the commercial. Oh read the. I mean, so that was nice. It was nice being able to casually read them. Yeah. And speed read them. I don't know. It's like because like if I try to read comics normally, I'm like okay, gonna speed read. Oh, they're all done. That's it. That's all the comics. That's the week.
Yeah.
So
well, my weeks are a lot bigger now than they were when you were consistently reading comics before. So that's another thing, because you basically read 80 plus odd titles.
Yes.
Just to crush them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So probably don't want to do that again.
No, I don't really at all.
Yeah.
I mean, wants to.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said for serialized comics because I think you miss some things in some of the comics because you're reading them all really fast. You don't get the enjoyment of having read it and then thinking about it whether the next one hits because you're cranking through them so quick and whatnot. So, but you obviously did have some thoughts on some books and whatnot. We talked some about it. The Disembodied Voice is still trying to catch up. She's almost caught up where we're at, so it's been kind of a, where do you stand to talk about something without spoiling it for somebody else and whatnot.
Yes.
So hopefully the whole house will be all caught up here pretty quick, and so then discussions can be had without it going, oh, I haven't read that yet.
Oh, Deadly Class. Deadly Class is another one. Like, Deadly Class is really high on my list of things that I'm like, where did this go?
Right.
Where did this? And it
Well,
is,
and now it's on a big break.
Yeah. Oh, now it's on a big break. I was gonna say
Yeah.
like it's not even on a big break like Birthright is. Oh.
Yeah, it is.
Wait. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Especially that last ending.
I think
oh,
it's not
my
back
God.
till June.
Uh.
There's a couple of them that take like almost a 2-month break.
That's
Yeah.
more than 2 months.
Well, yeah, it's something like that. But anyway, so in the process of all of that, and of course, the comic book climate has changed and whatnot. DC is getting ready to.
Ooh, that was another thing is you
DC's
can really see the shift in comics as DC just gets more serious and more serious.
Right, but DC is going to shift like 24 titles coming up in June are going to be a larger brush of tone as opposed to just the dark tone and stuff and whatnot. And clearly the first push of that was was Batgirl, and there's been some discussion about Batgirl kind of taking on more of that kind of tone. Some of us are suspect because of Ms. Marvel and the tone that it has. So we're getting these kind of more brighter, fresh-faced, more youthful, a lot of us would say, type comics. And so you've been reading both of those, and I don't know that you like either one of them,
I
really,
like
right?
both of them just
Okay.
fine. They're actually comics that I enjoy reading.
In the past, he has said, about both
Okay,
of them. So,
no,
so-
Mr. Overhyped, Ms. Marvel is literally the best comic to ever exist,
okay,
ever.
so that's the problem. I
Oh.
overhyped it.
It is a really good it's not the best thing ever, though.
Okay. So you want to talk about those?
Yes, so, like, I don't...
Because you've heard me talk about the discussion around the fact that we feel like these books probably aren't designed for me, being the 45-year-old old white geezer guy, that they're a more youthful oriented.
Ethan Sparkman, residential young person.
Right,
Yeah.
right. That's why you're here. Here's my token youth.
Yeah, uh-huh.
And remember, I can still put you down.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. So like I said, we've had lots of discussion about the fact that these books are geared, we figure, for a younger audience and whatnot. You're that younger audience. I don't know that you're the target audience because I'm suspect to some degree. I don't know so much about Ms. Marvel, but I'm suspect that the target audience for Batgirl is girls.
Yeah, I'm almost sure.
Right. Not that we're not capable of reading
and
those
enjoying it,
comics
yeah.
and enjoying them, as we do.
Yeah,
So,
well, that's just it. It's like they're a really good contrast of like how to do comics for young people and how to not do comics for young people. Like that's the first problem with Batgirl is that it feels like it's definitely more oriented towards women. And it's not like that's a bad thing. It's just I think if you're going to write a comic for general youth, I mean, sure you can definitely have things that like pander. I don't know. I don't want to be offended.
Yeah, pander's not a good word, but
pander
yeah.
to girls. Yeah, like except respectfully.
Right.
Don't hurt me, internet. You can have things that definitely like you target. Your target audience is girls, but you need to make sure that it can also include other people, or you can, or maybe, it feels like it feels like somebody sat down with the purpose of writing a comic for girls. It's not like they happen to include things that are good, like, I'm going to write a comic for girls. Like, not that they actually happen to include things for girls. It just feels very,
Right.
And Ms. Marvel's, I think, is a good breadth of everything. I mean, I think you can get the same amount of enjoyment out of it as a girl and as a guy. I mean, I think...
So you feel like it's less about Ms. Marvel's less about being a girl and just more about being a youthful learning.
I mean, sure. Yeah, obviously she has struggles that like girls. That makes sense. I understand that, right? And that's cool. And that's how it works. Well, Batgirl doesn't so much.
So is that a fault or is it a good thing that maybe they are writing it for girls? Because if we look at the history of comics and look at comics now. Are there comics out there that are actually really for girls, or here's a comic that that is produced clearly with us in mind?
Yeah.
Us in mind. So is it a bad thing, or do you think it would be more enjoyable to you, or do you think it would just be a better comic if it was geared less towards women, or is it okay? Or is it okay for it to be a comic geared at women, and we happen to enjoy it?
Yeah, I think it's okay. I think it's okay to be a comic geared toward women. I'm just saying, like, it's just obviously I still enjoy it. I really like Batgirl. There are a lot of things about it that I like, but I think it's definitely okay for it to be. I think it's definitely okay to write a comic and go, this comic, our target audience is girls, but it doesn't feel like that's what they're saying. It feels like they're saying with this comic is for girls. This is a comic girls should read, period. The end.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
And, I mean, because I definitely think that you can read it and then have other people enjoy it.
Okay.
Like, and maybe, I think, like, you can write something that, like, you think your female audience will... I'm not saying, like, you have to treat all of your audience...
The same. All right.
The same. I don't think as a writer you should, like, write something right and, like with classics. I don't think you should, like, because I'm reading a lot of classics right now where I'm in high school, you know, like, I don't think a lot of the books we read, you know, deal with race.
Right.
Right? And obviously, you know, I don't think, like, when you're writing a book, right, the main character is a minority, right, and your intent is to, like, get a book with a minority out there, I don't think you should write that in mind going, God, I hope white people enjoy this as much as the minority that I'm writing for,
Right.
I don't think that's something that you should have to do. I think you should be able to write and go, you know, I hope minorities enjoy this, and then whoever follows after, but I don't think you should write it thinking, I hope only,
Okay.
you know, only the minority
So
enjoys this.
you feel like the book is almost exclusive, like it's trying to be just a girl book.
Yes. Not like...
Okay.
I mean,
see
I
what
don't
you're
think that's what they're trying to do, but I think that's what it feels like
Okay.
to me. And then, like I said, Ms. Marvel does a really good job of encompassing that. And then Ms. Marvel, you know, I'm a dorky teenager, right? Ms. Marvel, like, the way she deals with things and, like, references things...
Right.
That's a lot of how, you know, me and, like, you know, the other people of the other teenagers of the white generation talk, right? I mean, you know, like the whole boss fight or the, wow, you know, such Wolverine, such, you know, much acrobat. You know, that, and there's, like, little clever references in there to, like, things that obviously geared towards teenagers, and I'm like, oh, cool, I see what you're doing there.
Right.
And, I don't know, well, Batgirl, some of the stuff that Batgirl does, like, it feels, it doesn't, I don't know, maybe it feels like it's trying to be immature and mature at the same time.
Right. So do you think that, though, is because of the fact you're a high schooler, Camilla in Ms. Marvel, she's a high schooler, and clearly Barbara Gordon's living a lifestyle and an age that you aren't at yet and haven't experienced, that's also where it's at, that it's being geared towards 20-somethings who want to read comics as opposed to teenagers who want to read comics?
I mean, that could be it. I mean, it could be flawed, you know, like, not have the experience to, like, view it correct or accurately, but I don't know, that's not what it feels like, I mean, because it still, like, tries to make references and stuff. I mean, like, the whole biker people, I mean, those are obviously a reference to old, you know, like,
anime stuff, right.
But, like, I think I used this example before. It feels like, to me, Batgirl is that person who's, like, in their mid-40s, like, late 30s, who's trying to wear a leather jacket. It's like, it's okay. You look cool when you wore leather jackets in your 20s. Just, like, put the leather jacket away for, like, you know, another 20 years, right? Get it out when you're 50, you look like a badass old guy in a jacket. Right? That's cool. It's like, you know, Dean Winchester and old Dean Winchester. It's, like, great. But, like, middle-aged Dean Winchester should not be wearing jackets, leather jackets, because then you just look like you're desperately trying to be young.
Oh, so that's the vibe you're getting off of Batgirl, that she's trying to be hip and cool and trendy instead of
the social media thing. That's what it is. Like, I can't think of an example. I'm like, I know there's really one obvious, the social media thing. The social media thing, while, you know, maybe it's, like, accurate on, like, some of the whole burning things, like, you know, definitely the, like, misuses, I would definitely say that that's, you know, definitely appropriate. But the other ways that people use it, or, like, you know, how they treat it when they're treating it jovially, you know, it's like, that's not how people. That's not how people treat it.
Okay.
I mean, so it just feels. It feels like, yes, we can be cool too. Are you trying to be cool? Because you're not cool. I mean, I appreciate your effort, but while Ms. Marvel feels like it's a book for young people just because it's written that way, like, it just, the way it's written, it comes off really well to young people. It feels like I guess that's the same problem that I had. That's with the whole, like, girl thing, right? Well, Ms. Marvel, right? I can see how it definitely, like, you know, female audience, right? But that's because that's the way it's written, right? That's not how Batgirl is. Batgirl isn't written in such a way that it just relates to, you know, it's not like I think I'm gonna relate it to, you know, women and then write it so that it relates to women. It feels like they are trying to relate it to women. It is a book it is a book for young people, not a book that not even happens, but, like, a book that is written in such a way that it just comes off really well.
Okay, cool. I see that. So,
and I've noticed Batgirl is slowly like getting better as it and I think, but I also think it's moving away from that, and I think it's also trying to be its own thing. I mean, part of that is it seems less desperate to me. It seems less desperate to be a book for young people, and it seems to
So, do you think that feeling you have is because of the way it's written, or is it because, like a lot of us, we went from the prior Barbara Gordon, pre number 35 or whatever number it was when the new team took over, where you had this clearly dark, maybe not brooding, but dealing with a lot of stuff. Very mature. I mean, I've always considered Barbara Gordon to be the maturest person of the Bat family, probably even more mature than Batman. To this more youthful version of college-going Barbara Gordon. Do you think that's why you feel like the writing's that way, or is it really because that's the way it's written?
I think it's really because that's the way it's written. Because
Okay.
I mean, I have been behind for more than 9 months. I mean,
Sure.
because I've tried repeatedly, like, oh, just kidding, oh, just to catch up, right? So it's not like I was just behind a 9 month, and I started skipping from the very, very beginning of me trying to get caught up.
Right.
And I have not read any Batgirl since issue 11. I don't think I've read a full year of pre 36, I think, pre now Batgirl.
Okay.
So I don't think it's that I'm going, shell
So you're
shock
not-
from
right.
from,
Versus what a lot of us felt that they're reading at the time.
from serious dark Batgirl to goofy. Like, I think the last thing I read, I don't know how far that was. I think the last thing I read was the end of the James Jr. when she throws
the Wanted stuff.
when
right.
she throws and he falls off.
So you didn't even read the Wanted stuff that came after that?
No, I think I read the first issue of the Wanted stuff. I think the last issue I read for sure is when Gordon shoots her crippled boyfriend.
Right. Oh, there's a few more issues you should probably read then, because the Wanted stuff is actually really good.
Oh, okay.
Because there's some real complications in there. The fact, of course, Gordon is hunting down Batgirl because, of course, Batgirl
Killed his son.
Killed his homicidal psycho
I was just
son.
saying,
Right.
I'm not saying that I would high five someone if they killed my homicidal crazy son, right? Who was trying to kill my ex-wife,
right?
Right.
Right. No, you just go home and have a cupcake and sleep really well that night, right?
Right. But no, I wouldn't even. I wouldn't congratulate them or anything, right? And I'm sure I'd be torn up with the loss of my son, but I wouldn't be well, time to hunt this person down, because I mean, it's terrible to say that it was a justice, but have you seen James Jr.?
Right.
Have you seen him?
Right.
He cut off her finger.
Right. Complete and utter psychopath.
Yeah. So it's not. I don't think it's the worst thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I definitely hear what you're saying on both those books and whatnot. I personally think that Ms. Marvel works better as a whole and has from the very beginning.
Yes, definitely.
As just being a very youthful, fresh breath of air of a kind of a story of us experiencing what she's experiencing, being learning to be a hero and whatnot. I do think that Batgirl is getting to be a better comic.
Yes, for
and
sure.
I for me personally, I think some of it is the writing has gotten better, and it's gotten more focused in that there's clearly a crisis going on, so we're focusing on that. So that is holding my interest more. But I'm not sure that I can't say that part of it also is I'm getting enough distance from the last Batgirl just to see this Batgirl for what it is.
No, I definitely think this Batgirl is getting better. And there's another thing is the art has changed. Not drastically or anything, but the coloring. Maybe it's just me. But the coloring for me, seems like it started out right on the first issue, and she beats up the purse snatcher.
Right.
It's it's not. I don't know if color saturation's the right word to use. I don't think it is, but it definitely seems very bright. If we're not using warm colors, we're using neutral colors, or we're using neon colors. Even when she fights the two twins in the
It's sharp.
in the abandoned parking lot, right? It's still I'd assume that abandoned parking lots are not well lit, especially I don't know what they're called when they're
Parking garage.
Parking garage, right? I assume that they're not well lit, and even then it's still not bright, but it's still a lot brighter than I would expect.
They're
it to
working
be.
very hard to have a different tone than the rest of the Batman books, so that's fine.
Well, now maybe it's because they think they've established that tone. It's allowed itself to become more dark, the rest of
Well,
us.
and the storyline's gotten a heck of a lot more serious
Yeah.
too.
So.
Yeah. But you're liking both books now
Yes.
because you were kind of about them to start with.
Was not about Ms. Marvel. Okay, well maybe the first issue. The first issue I was like, nothing really happened in this issue. I'm like, ooh, she goes to a party. Don't do, but that part felt really cliche to me. Like,
Yeah.
they go to the party.
Well-
the good person goes to the party,
Yeah.
and that party happens to be the one party on the
Right.
face of the earth that goes terribly wrong. Which, on the other hand, I totally relate to because karma sucks. Like, I hate you, karma. Don't hurt me, karma. I hate you, karma. Like, I do something bad, right? Bad things happen to me. Somebody else like pushes someone off a cliff. Oh, they're fine. They win the lottery the next day.
Right.
What the hell? I know. Like, I break the rules one time. Damn it.
Yeah.
Like, so,
But yeah, there have been other cliche things.
So
in Ms. Marvel that-
So, but I really feel the whole does the one bad thing. No, but
Right.
that is still the one bad thing. The one time you just barely bend the rule. Oh, it all comes crashing down.
Right.
So that was really cliche. But like from that that issue on, it's binge watching. Okay.
Yeah.
It was. It's fine. I like that's the same thing with me. Batgirl's just growing a lot slower.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's him. Well, cool. Anything else you want to say about those two books? Like I said, I'm enjoying both of them. They're both have got their own things going on.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what.
And you know what?
They both.
I know I just complained about it, but I actually really like the art in Batgirl. Like,
Uh-huh.
I'm not even trying to complete. Like, their facial expressions though, their facial expressions are great. Like, especially in like the most recent issue where it looks completely ridiculous, but somehow it really feels like an accurate face when Barbara's college professor is talking about how Diana looks attractive.
Right.
Right? And that face that he makes, right? Even though it's completely ridiculous. I don't know, I really like the facial expressions in that book because I feel like they're well executed.
So, do you think that's a question about art? Because both of these books have a different art style than most Marvel books and most DC books, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they're closer to kind of a anime or manga style? Not pulling the full icon pops, not that, but clearly eyes get bigger than what you would typically see if somebody was drawing a straight superhero book as far as that kind of stuff goes. So you get a little heavier expression in the Batgirl stuff and whatnot. Her eyes, the way she's drawn, her eyes are a little bit bigger than normal one. I mean, Babs Carr does draw all that stuff that way, where it's that kind of brighter and.
Yeah, I definitely think I was really surprised that you liked the art style for, because literally, I read things and you're like, this is way too cartoon, stands out to me is Justice Society of America, pre-52, when it was all the new Justice, I don't even remember what it was called, right, when it was all the younger generation of people, right, and you're like, I don't like this book because it's super cartoony looking, and I was like, where are you seeing the cartoon? I'm like, I don't see this anywhere!
I still don't like that artist, so yeah.
Well, I know. Well, I don't know, for me, it's I would not say that the people in Batgirl are super realistically proportioned, but I wouldn't say they're unrealistic. I mean, they're definitely there's a lot of comic book art that I have, David Finch, right? What?
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Especially that's another thing. Is while both books, while one book feels like women and the other feels like hey, I still think they both do a good job of portraying women respectfully. Maybe I can't say that, but I think they do. I mean, there's no alien breast syndrome. Right. There's no super nipping. I mean, so it's not
all the stuff that clearly has gone on.
Nobody's back has been broken. So
yeah.
So that's, and I don't know. For me, maybe their eyes are a little weird, but maybe it's just refreshing to not see super tight muscled buff men beating people up, but it almost feels to me like the people in I think the people in Ms. Marvel almost look more like real people to me. I don't know. I mean, sometimes they don't, but sometimes they do. I don't know. I get a lot more Joe Citizen, that is a person that exists. I don't know. Part of me feels like if I really wanted to concentrate, I could go and look at all the background characters in Ms. Marvel and think, oh, that person has a life because this, and this. They don't look like I need background characters to make it not look like an abandoned street. Right. Here they are.
Right. Well, you got body heights and types, and so yeah, much more so than you do in your standard superhero comic where. Other than Wolverine being short and everybody else, pretty much everybody else is the same type, and, that sort of stuff where everything is, yeah. But yeah, so I mean, but right, the art does move more that direction than what the standard stuff does. Yeah. Which I think is another ploy. Which I think is another ploy that they're using because we've got this whole demographic clearly that's much younger than me that has no problem with anime and manga and all that kind of stuff, and so it's kind of this not really a hybrid of it, but close to it. Especially with how goofy they can get with Ms. Marvel, because of course her body stretches and whatnot, so they can really take that over the top as far as that kind of stuff goes. But all right, anything else want to?
I think that's it.
Okay. Well, I think that's it for this time. You know, not a whole lot in the way of news and whatnot, but appreciate you coming on and talking about the books and whatnot, because I know me and you have kind of talked about it quite a bit, so wanted to put something out there talking about it. And I'll see you later on in the week with reviews and Comic Roundtable and whatever else comes up. Have a great one, everybody.